Innovatec gioca un ruolo da protagonista nel settore della clean tech, grazie all'esperienza nel settore dell'efficienza energetica, dell'economia circolare e dei servizi di protezione ambientale. Offriamo soluzioni end-to-end. Presidiamo tutto il processo di gestione degli scarti in ottica di economia circolare. Il nostro team di professionisti specializzati in progetti di consulenza strategica, di sostenibilità e di carbon neutrality affianca da anni migliaia di imprese e partner in tutta Italia. Costruiamo e gestiamo impianti di energia rinnovabile e supportiamo le imprese e le pubbliche amministrazioni a trovare le migliori tecnologie per diminuire i propri consumi di energia. Ma questo è solo l'inizio. Vogliamo aiutare le comunità a diventare a impatto zero, fornendo soluzioni innovative, concrete e tempestive ai problemi ambientali di oggi e del domani. Il futuro della clean tech industry è arrivato. Siamo pronti ad essere protagonisti. Siamo pronti a riscrivere il futuro.
Good morning to all of you. My name is Raffaele Vanni, Head of Investor Relations of the Innovatec Group. It's a pleasure to have you here. We are introducing our business plan spanning 2022-2024, and for us it's very important to introduce this new business plan because it's our ground zero. It's the starting path towards the growth of our group. It is a commitment we have taken up vis-à-vis the financial community and the entire market. And we think it is a paramount moment in time to lay the foundations for our future growth. Let me introduce the speakers of today. Our chairman, Mr. Elio Catania, and our CEO, group CEO, Legal Counsel, Mr. Maggio, and Head of Financial Planning and Reporting, Mr. Federico Malgarini. And let me hand it over to our chairman, who will tell us about the growth driver. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for joining us today. And I have to start. I feel that it's a privilege and it's an honor to be here with you, to be able to share with you data about our three-year plan, our business plan, our growth plan, our execution project to grow and develop our Innovatec. We want to tell you a nice equity story. And the project was not designed today, but 1.5 years ago, thanks to the vision of an outstanding entrepreneur, Pietro Colucci, and it relies on a team of managers who are really determined in what they do. And our 2021 performance and the milestones we managed to achieve last year really make us confident that the goals we embedded in our business plan are indeed ambitions, but also within our reach. We know what we have to do, and we know how we have to do it to really roll out our projects, our energies, and enter this outstanding market. And I'll tell you more about this market in a minute. Let's focus on the market. Well, you're all experts, so you know about clean tech, so I won't dwell on it too long. But the main thing is that we are at the very heart of a wonderful type of business at the right time. The clean tech industry is a set of product, services and processes that make energy more efficient, make the use of resources more efficient, and that tend to generate energy that as renewable as possible. And we are at the very center of this transformation or transition process. You know that this topic is now the focus of many companies, of policymakers, and of society at large. But over the last 3 years, we've witnessed an outstanding acceleration in the process, and the energy transition and the clean tech industry topic is one of the 3 main pillars in European development policies, both at national and global level. Digital transformation and energy transition and social cohesion. That is of paramount importance because it really set the pace at European level, set the goals at European level, very challenging goals indeed. And these goals are working along 3 axes. So the circular economy, the way we use resources, cut down to 10% the output of industrial production to be taken to a landfill. It's indeed a very ambitious goal. 60% the value of recycled processes, starting from 50 and reaching 60 in just a few years. And then another important item is indeed the CO2 emission reduction. And this is a very controversial topic. It means cutting these emissions by 55% by 2030 with a target for 2050 that is the so-called zero emission target. And whatever is produced should be captured. And such results cannot be achieved unless we tackle them adequately. They cannot be achieved through a traditional, conventional approach, and companies have to act accordingly. And this is generating headaches, if you wish. In some industries, by the way, in the entrepreneurial and industrial world, but the pathway ahead is now tracked, marked. It's a single track ahead, and that is the track we have to follow. So it's very important that companies like ours that are active in this business are better and better equipped to provide valuable products, processes, and contributions so that the pathway is followed in the best possible way. And then the third pillar, the third track to be followed is the use of renewable energies. You know figures very well. By 2030, we talk about RES installed capacity equal to 116 gigawatts. So 70%, that would generate 70% of energy through renewable sources. And all that was translated into decision-making and policy-making that it was unheard of. 1 trillion worth of euros is the amount of money devoted to energy transition, and this is a spillover effect that will affect the entire European continent, and that was, of course, implemented and enforced by member states as well. And energy transition, 60 billion euro were devoted to energy transition in Europe, and it's not money for the future. This is money for today. Luckily, I was lucky enough to contribute to the drawing up of the plans within the PNRR. And devoted a lot of my time to energy transition and to the production system in our country. And this money is getting 26 billion in 2021 that were devoted to infrastructures. But starting from this year, all initiative plans, projects, financial instruments to support the production system and individual systems will start flowing into the country. These facilities will reach our country, and this is a huge opportunity. And Innovatec, because of its background and track record, we've always been active in circular economy, environment, and energy efficiency. And so Innovatec is at the very center of this energy transformation process. This is a one-of-a-kind opportunity, and enterprises get this opportunity only once in a lifetime, and we are in a position to exploit, to use this opportunity, and that is the rationale behind behind our business plan. We're talking about execution of a plan. We have the design to execute. We have 3 possible new markets that we have outlined in our plan, and they can be identified through acronyms that came from the PNRR directly. They add up to about 20 billion. They can be added up to the existing activities we are already running. Eco bonus, the 110% eco bonus, and 2021 confirmed that we are in a position to play a primary role in supporting the system. The national, it's people, their houses, buildings, condominia, you name it, and then energy transition. 3.5 billion were devoted to that to support production and the reviewing of in-house production systems to achieve the policy goals. And then energy communities, 2.2 billion, the agro-photovoltaic themes, how to replace asbestos by installing photovoltaic panels instead. And so we're really faced with a one-of-a-kind opportunity, and our group is set up in the best possible ways, designed in the best possible way to really follow these 3 pathways for development, the way ahead.
So on the one hand, we have brands and companies that will develop the entire field of the environment and circular economy. Just think of GreenUp and then Heike, the new company which is now following on these initiatives, and then Cobalt, our most recent acquisition. It was a public consortium up until July of last year. It became a joint venture company, and we acquired it. And we did so with a lot of determination and vision, because we want to rest assured that in this component of the environment and of circular economy, we can just control every aspect from the collection of waste to the landfills to their reprocessing and recycling, moving towards this vertical structure that the industrial system will have to adopt. And Cobalt is the organization that is helping us become a direct player in the world of batteries. So we are moving towards a verticalization of our response capabilities. As you can see on the right-hand side, through a brand called House Verde and companies like Innovatec Power, we have every capability it takes and all the capacity it takes to respond in terms of energy efficiency for companies from a B2B perspective, but also providing that on a B2C basis to apartment buildings and small villas. And also we have a number of opportunities also for the public administration. We'll see this in detail. Let's see the possible applications. What I would like to highlight is something that is extremely relevant for people who look at our company, not just in terms of results, but also in terms of its own dynamics. We have an end-to-end approach, and not many companies in this country have a possibility and an opportunity to go from the collection of industrial waste to consulting on energy transition and circular economy. And we also have the right size to do that. We're not too small, we're not too big, and we are therefore not crushed by bureaucracy. So many groups even the biggest, are trying to replicate our business model, our ability to serve the market end to end, to serve our customers and clients end to end. And this is one of the key points that our development plan was designed and modeled on. So an end-to-end response to market needs. Our strategy is very simple and very clear. We want to leverage the assets that we have. You're going to see this in a minute and also in the rest of the presentation. In our plan, we have almost close to 60 billion in investments for Sorry, he is correcting himself. He's saying 60 million now. Okay, I'm thinking big. So 60 million in investments to enhance our production facilities, our plants, our lines, our production lines, and also for external acquisitions. So we'd like to leverage the asset base that we already have. On the other hand, we'd like to reinforce the other fundamental aspect of our strategy that Innovatec has to will bring to the market, that is skills and people. This is an industry where there's a high technology intensity as well as a competence intensity. And we know that well. We have a very intense investment plan that targets human resources so that they become increasingly skilled to be able to respond to the challenges ahead. Okay, let me go to the figures. The idea is that I would like to give you a size, a reflection of the size of the challenge ahead. You see on the left-hand side the investments, the capex, the acquisitions, and then the transition to the resources, 300 to 400 people, and then we have the two primary dimensions. On the right-hand side, this represents a company that is aiming for growth. We'd like it to have 400 million euros in sales in 3 years, within 3 years, almost doubling this year's turnover. And of course, the data is standardized, and so that factors in the effect of the Cobalt acquisition with a level of EBITDA which will grow evenly, with a compounded of 22%. We know it is ambitious, but it's a feasible plan. We know what we want to do. We know how to do it. And 2021 was essential to us to test firsthand, constantly, our capacity, our ability to respond to a market which is changing permanently, continuously changing. Before we move on to the details, I have a final slide. We speak a lot about ESG, sustainability reports. To Innovatec, sustainability is part of its DNA. At Innovatec, we started talking about sustainability when no one even used the word 10, 12 years ago. And so all of these activities that we're going to describe are based on one very sturdy platform, sustainability. We have a very concrete material plan, very well identifying 69 actions that will keep the sustainability of the company alive at all times, and that will address every player. The company as a whole, its employees, the customers, the regulators, the suppliers, and the shareholders, as well as society at large. Let's now look at the execution of this plan. And to do so, I'll leave the floor to our CEO, Roberto Maggi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank you, all of you, for being here today. I'm so pleased to welcome all of you. As our chairman said, I will walk you through the guidelines and actions and our management model and development model at group level. The guidelines are, again, as Mr. Cattaneo said before, the guidelines are broken down along three pillars. It's environment, circular economy, and there we expect to invest a lot and really strengthen our franchise there to improve and enhance our asset base, even through acquisitions, to really maximize our efforts and be really evolved when it comes to recycling and recovering raw materials. It's not just the traditional cycles we are focusing on, but it's also the vertical process to recover raw materials in our COBAT consortium, the lithium battery consortium. The recent acquisition of SEA to recover electronic material, the RAEE material. So we're going through a circular economy approach. We recover, treat, and then reuse, reintroduce into the market the recovered raw material. And then we want to broaden our sales proposition. And what do we mean by that? Again, we break that down into two lines. First of all, we want to be very active at national level, again, end to end, from consultancy to implementation, admin support. We can ensure full compliance with the regulatory requirements, and also so end to end, but also from a vertical perspective, reaching out to domains that are not typical of our national culture, and then the supply chain and the recovery of materials. That is something that has been going on for years, but it's not been taking place very often. We've seen many initiatives to recover materials, but then it doesn't happen so often, whilst we are really trying to roll out projects very, very practically, and we do so through our expertise. And then the transfer of competencies and skills, because what we do is also use our 40-year-old track record, long-standing track record, and applying to all the domains where we have an active role. And then we want to be an innovation driver. As Mr. Catania was saying, we want to be an entity that, by going to the market through our own specific vehicles, we want to promote analysis, environmental studies, decarbonization programs and plans, and we want to support companies. It's bespoken, customized activities that we run and make available to whoever is turning to us. And of course, and then what do we do? After we support, we also help and advise when it comes to execution. Again, we want to be a driver for initiatives and startups. We want to focus and roll out focus on technology and roll out technology projects, so as to be able to introduce innovation in systems and processes to recover raw materials from a vertical standpoint. And then energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is in our DNA, and we have accrued experience in the field. And also we are focusing on the Eco Bonus project, what we called House Verde, and we want to be a primary player in this Eco Bonus domain. This approach goes hand in hand with a way we come up with solutions, hands-on solutions. And I will come back to this. We are not technology sellers. We don't have to sell a boiler or a photovoltaic panel. We want to come up with the best possible solution, the best way to really support our customers, or the end consumers in this case, to give them the best of our experience. When it comes to the eco bonus, the jump into energy efficiency classes to be able to get the incentive, sometimes we manage to achieve a jump of 5 or 6 energy classes when after we've introduced our intervention. downstream, so to say. How do we roll out? How do we translate these guidelines? How do we strengthen our asset base? We improve technology, we renew our asset base, our plants and equipments. We grow our ability to access unconventional markets. We have led projects, for instance, on batteries, and Cobat is not only dealing with depleted batteries, but also with W and triple E waste and electronic waste. And again, we will put in place cross-selling activities to really leverage on the entire group strength and operations. As I said, we want to strengthen our asset base. We want to of course, get the right certifications on our waste treatment plants and landfills that are owned by the group. And then we want to grow also from a sales perspective, because we want to provide our end customers or end clients with the idea of fully treating waste from collection, sorting, certification, and recovery of raw materials to the actual certification of the entire process, of the final outcome of the process. Wherever you have a supply chain where you want to recover material to then be reintroduced into the market, it's the actual certification we provide to be able to reintroduce the product into the market. It could be batteries or another project we have for the recovery of drywall material and also of mattresses. We will soon start a plan to be able to make the recovered material available for use, either in the, for instance, mattress supply chain or in recovering material that could be used as a soundproofing, for soundproofing purposes. From the energy perspective, we are going to focus on, as I said, on the eco-bonus incentives. And we are proposing the same thing for public residential buildings or solutions. It could be public housing, ALER, for instance, ALEREACP, it's city council housing. And then, of course, also on hotels. We are focusing on hotels. As far as the B2B or industrial part is concerned, we also can provide bespoke solutions to our corporate clients. Again,
our assets, our group is well represented, and we have extensive experience and expertise, and we manage many important assets which lie at the very basis of our development in northern Italy, from Liguria to the Venetian area. We have 5 selection, treatment, and recovery of waste plants. And since we're not sorting urban waste but industrial waste, that is a different story. We also have plants that capture the gas that would otherwise be dispersed in the atmosphere. They treat it in ad hoc plants, which are very advanced also technologically. We also run 3 landfills in Italy. And we have our own trucks and vehicles, approximately 50 vehicles, which are through also collaborations with strategic partners, drive our nationwide coverage to a level that allows us to serve nationwide clients such as Sani, Chef, and others with landfills and sorting and treatment plants that serve big players like Autogrill. We have a customer base, a client base in the environmental sector and circular economy of approximately 400 clients with a degree of retention of 45%, with a high responsibility on the part of producers so that the network services and the ability to certify the processes confirm historical relations with our clients. In terms of industrial as well as residential, we have around 400 people. Sales force is around 200 people, and we are working nationwide.
Le nostre esperienze.
Now, our experiences. The company was created in 2013. It had been created in the energy sector from the very beginning. So we had cogeneration and photovoltaic under our belt when we started managing, as well as managing a biogas plant. And this was enriched with this vision of bringing the final solution to the final customer on an end-to-end basis. In 2020, therefore, we also introduced the environmental services, aggregating the two sides of our experience. And that was completed in 2021 with the acquisition of Cobat, so with vertical integration. The history of recent years is very clear. Capitalization has just boosted. The pro forma sales of this year was essentially 220 million, an exponential growth in terms of internal as well as external growth. Our business structure. The business structure is, as our president said before, is such that it covers the needs of our clients on an end-to-end basis. We have added a few slides when it comes to environment. We collect it, sort it, and treat it, dispose it, or recycle and recover it. With a number of collateral and administrative services, such as the waste ledger and the necessary authorizations that need to be managed on behalf of our clients, trying to really meet every need our clients may have, who need, therefore, someone who will just relieve them of many necessary steps. Now, for the eco bonus, we have started House Verde. The final client, the citizen, or the administration will sign an agreement with us, who will therefore become the general contractors, taking care of the quotation, the execution, the work done materially, the sourcing of materials, which is pretty challenging these days. And also we'll take care of the very complex and cumbersome administrative management, certifying these processes on the INEA platform for certification and validation is pretty hard and complex, and professionals will also certify the translation of these activities into tax credits, and also it will be in charge of transferring tax credits to us. So the final customer, when dealing with us, will be working with a counterparty that will really follow every single part of the process in a tailor-made fashion, looking for the best solutions from an energy perspective, with very good results in terms of energy efficiency gains. The same applies also to on a B2B basis. With the final client, we have good stories and nice stories to tell with Scotti, Pastificio Andreani, and others. And we study simply their needs. So we look at the inputs in terms of energy that are necessary to the plants, to these clients, how much gas, how much electricity, what vectors. We carry out analysis, we measure. We have measurement systems that work well with all their data, and then we build we plot a way forward together with also the possibility to create a budget, a progressive budget, because maybe you don't have all the money from the very start. And then year after year, we implement environmental solutions from cogeneration to steam recovery boilers, process recovery points, photovoltaic plants, or electrification of the vehicle fleet. So we accompany them in every single respect, trying to develop solutions that can really solve as much as possible any of their needs. Okay, now the floor goes to Mr. Margarini for the figures and the real-life examples.
Buongiorno a tutti, mi unisco ai ringraziamenti.
I would like to join our chairman and our CEO in thanking you for joining us today. Let me walk you through the figures, the financials of our business plan spanning 2022-2024. And let's focus mainly on the two main growth driver, CapEx and people. And let me try and share with you some more ideas to see how this is really a change in generation in our group. So what we want to achieve, we have 70 million worth of fixed assets in the group. So 80% of the extra capex we're going to run is more than double the average investment in the previous 3 years. So it's a very strong commitment we're making capex-wise that is also accompanied by a very strong growth in our human capital, so to say, in the head count. 125 people will be hired. We already have 260 in the Innovatec group. So and we'll break them down 60 more people in environment and 60 more people in energy efficiency. So it's a very important plan, business plan for us. This year we hired 59 new people and we integrated them into our group. If we manage to actually complete this capex plan of 60 million with 125 people, we'll get to 55 million EBITDA by 2024 and 405 million worth of revenues. And also we will introduce a real turnaround when it comes to the underlying items. EBIT, 38 million at the end of the plan, will account for 9% of revenues, which is more than double the margins we have achieved in 2020 and 2021. In order to do that, we will have to switch towards activities and assets that have a longer useful life and therefore also a different DNA process. And so recycling, recovering and revaluing, enhancement of material. I'm going to skip a few slides because I think it'll make things clearer while I walk you through the presentation. Let me show you how revenues go from 222 this year to 405 at the end of the business plan. First of all, as you can see on the slide, there's a rebalancing of the two businesses. So energy efficiency on the one hand and environmental unit will have a similar weight, 204 circular economy, 201 for the energy efficiency unit. So this second domain will enjoy the greatest growth because thanks to the Hauswerte project at the end of the business plan, the Hauswerte operations and the renewal of our real estate assets will lead to an additional 135 million worth of revenues. And another very important point is to read this chart in the light of the national and European policies we've introduced at the beginning of the presentation, and the part where European legislators stressed most was the recovery and recycling of waste, where we think we're confident we can grow. So 20 million on recovery and treatment, be traditional and innovative, 15 million on the M&A side. M&A will mainly be for recovery, technologically advanced recovery, and then 11 million on the cobalt side to really enhance waste material. And then the only item we see as declining is the final waste disposal stage, also in compliance with the what the legislators are requesting. That is to say, by to get to halving the waste to be submitted to final treatment by 2035, and so emissions will be treated, meaning with the aim in mind to improve energy efficiency. We want also the real estate, the building pool to be better from a sustainability viewpoint, and there we will focus our revenues to. And the second driver is the renewable energy installed power, installed base. And by 2024, we want to reach 40 million worth of revenues coming from photovoltaic installation over 3 years, and installing about 65 megawatt over the 3 years. It's a challenging goal, but it relies on our ability we have and our track record in being able to install such plants. And at national level, we will have 116 gigawatts of renewable energy. So it's going to be a good slice of a market that is progressing. Let's have a look at our individual business profitability. Over the 3 years of our business plan, there'll be a better balance between energy efficiency and environment. Environment will still have higher margins because of its embedded feature. It has a higher EBITDA versus the energy efficiency business, but both pillars will contribute to expand, to grow the group EBITDA, going from 30 million this year to more than 55 at the end of the business plan, with a growth of 13 million. It's 1.5 times what energy efficiency contributed this year, whilst environment will have a growth of about 57%. And even there, if we look at the profitability, the activities where we expect the largest growth to take place are material recovery, reuse, and reintroduction into the market of recovered materials. So ordinary treatment, innovative treatment, and then, of course, the M&A part that is part of the process, as we said before. And when it comes to profitability and margins, we'll see it on the EBIT side. So gross margins, EBITDA, so to say, will be around 14%, so it will stay flat, but there'll be a major difference on the EBIT side. That is ensured through a large growth in our energy efficiency business. It's a business that's characterized by lower investment, lower capex requirements, and then lower depreciations, and a higher conversion of EBITDA into EBIT. In 2021 and 2024, there's a small delta between these two parameters. The quantum leap instead is experienced in environmental processes and circular economy, because most of our capex, and let me reiterate this, most of our activities will be shifted towards recovering materials, recycling them, and reintroducing them into the market. And that will enable us to retain a flat gross profitability, but also to cut the weight of depreciations over time that are tied in with disposal cost, and therefore increase our EBIT. And at the end of the plan, it should be around 10% and 38 million in absolute terms. And that, indeed, will enable us to get to the market with financial ratios that are going to be much more appealing as ROE and ROI are meant or are concerned. So thanks to an increase in efficiency, we have much better ratios, much more appealing ratios than we had last year. ROE about 24%. And our very strong statement is to move on increasing our profitability, getting close to 30% ROE by the end of the plan. The ROI ratio is the outcome of the major switch towards recovery and recycle activities. So lower impact of depreciation and provisions will enable our CapEx to be more profitable. How is that translated into cash? Over a 3-year time span, we want to develop 143 million worth of EBITDA, cumulated EBITDA for the entire group. That will be enough to fully fund our CapEx, 59 million of CapEx and 12 million worth of acquisitions. And then, of course, the relevant taxes, but also manage the end of landfills that are at the end of their life and reduce our net financial position by 19 million. Therefore, leaving us at the end of the plan with further cash on hand to be devoted to further growth or to be distributed, paid out to shareholders, standing at 15 million. That will be added to the cash on hand that we had available on January the 1st, 2022, and that was 25 million, apologies. Going back to the two main drivers, the two main levers that we will use to get to the goals. 59 million worth of investment, 125 the head count. The CapEx will be, 23 million to be focused on innovative assets to recover material. Mr. Maggio talked about a special plan to recover mattresses or drywall material, and then the SEA plan to recover e-waste, and then enhance the existing asset base for conventional treatment. 12 million worth of investments for acquisitions, and SEA is indeed the clearest sponsor. We are going to acquire, as we did in the past, as we will do in the future, we acquire majority stakes within the circular economy or recovery business that have a strong innovation content, and then on a vertical axis. A circular economy is huge, but we will focus on some vertical processes where we want to be outstanding in our performance. And acquisitions will be performed through the acquisition of a majority stake, of a controlling stake, because the presence of the entrepreneur who actually set up the business will ensure development and growth. So 59 million worth of CapEx, and more than 27, it's development CapEx for growth CapEx to go from 220 to in excess of 400 million worth of revenues or sales. And then human resources, human capital, 125 people we're going to hire. And on the energy efficiency front, and we'll see that, we see this in the chart, it's an unexpected evolution, the growth we expect, so it's difficult. It goes through swings, and we'll have to be good at introducing these people and embedding them and integrating them into our setup. And then, in addition to organic growth through acquisitions that we will perform over the next 3 years, we will also have to embed and integrate the so-called resources coming from the acquired companies, and these people or resources will have to somehow join the common and shared project. And then net financial position, cash generation we've seen before will enable us to get to the end of the business plan with about 40 million cash on hand, and at the same time it will reduce by 19 million the NFP with reference to the debts that were acquired last year, that were made last year. So at the end of the plan, NFP of about 31 million in the positive. And those were the main financials. Let me hand it over to our chairman.
Ma proprio per concludere.
So just a few words as a conclusion. We have shown to you our plan, our vision, the strategic positioning of our company in the general landscape. We told you about our plans and figures, and I hope you will have understood the nature of its basis, which is based on execution. The nicest plans are those that can be executed, and we know well that to execute a plan of this size, complexity, and ambition, we need to work on two key aspects at the same time. One has to do with the team, how the team is working, how well it is working, and then the organizational and operational model. In terms of the first aspect of the former, we know well that we have to do a lot to bring people together, to work together. The change management and the change in culture will be a constant trait of our leadership style and way of working. Continuous training and also making the needs of our customers and clients well known to our people. The delivery is important. We have created a way to connect the results of the company as well as the results of individual departments. But we know very well that that is not enough, and we need to provide continuity in the leadership style. The message from the top that makes the difference, the styles, the behaviors of a company that make a difference. And we're very much aligned on that because we know that that is going to be key going forward. The second dimension is how fluid we are. Our business model, our processes. We have simplified and will simplify even more moving forward because we know that a company of this size with many competitors and also regulators to deal with will need to be fast and swift, and we will have to implement a model that is based on decentralization and also accountability vis-a-vis the market and the clients. We know that our processes need to be simple to make it easier for people in the front rows to work. Now, of course, this has to go hand in hand with a key factor, which is competence and skills. We have shown our plan to recruit, our recruitment plan to you, and we need people with competences and skills in every role from administrative to technical. This is a company that alongside its capacity to execute also needs discipline and rigor. So we have equipped ourselves with all the control planning, reporting, and transparency tools that are going to make this company the champion it can be. We feel this is a very ambitious plan, but we feel it's doable. And 2021 demonstrated to us that our ambitions led us to meeting our targets, to attaining our targets. We have an equity story. We have a model as a company. We are a company in a growing industry with possibilities to invest, which can bring great satisfaction. So thank you again for being with us and for listening to us. There is now a short Q&A session. But before we do so, I'd like to ask Vani to present the history of our stocks and all the prospects for investments. Thank you very much for being with us. It was very important for us to convey that to you. But what is most important is not just a commitment on the figures, but also a commitment towards our investors. It's something that we started working more closely on by mid-2021, creating a governance process and adequate reporting. And also we started a transparent and very fluid relationship with our investors based on transparency and corporate accountability. What we really did, and that was also part of our last press release, was to provide our financial community not just the classic reporting. We have already adapted our reporting process so that we can provide reports on a quarterly basis to highlight how we are performing on the KPIs and the other key numbers on a quarter-by-quarter basis. This is something that the AIM would require, at least in its most basic elements. But if things go as they should and could, we're all committed at the management level to reach a broader market, and this is necessary, therefore, for us to reach the star market. This is our commitment to our investors. On our side, we have started this path, which has led to the acquisition by important institutional investors of part of our shares, qualifying our shareholder base with an increase in the floating capital and an increase in cash flows. And we can rest assured, therefore, that our future will be rosier and rosier. Now, out of transparency, I'm here to take your questions and provide information and clarifications so that this plan can be understood even in the most minor details. We have seen goals that are higher and higher, and they support the soundness of our business model and our leadership team action, our chairman and CEO and board, and I am very proud on behalf of this group, and I truly hope that we can continue to communicate with you on an increasingly transparent basis. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Oh, I forgot to add this. Obviously, in our relations to our investors, as part of that, we will start in the weeks going forward to start some analyst coverage, and there will be a new corporate broker that is going to help us on foreign markets, especially the French market. I wanted to highlight this commitment to, again, reinforce this idea of transparency and visibility in our relations with our investors. I think we can start our Q&A session, so we're here to take your questions. A few investors and shareholders are also connected via the web, and we are at your disposal for any questions or requests for explanations as well as information.
Prego.
Grazie. Buongiorno. Volevo riprendere un
Good morning to you, all of you. I'd like to go back to your growth potential, the high growth potential. Romitelli Value Track I'd like to go back to your huge growth potential and the entity of your capex to really support this. 2021 was very much characterized by the 110 super bonus. Of course, it has a timeline, it has expiration dates. So what are your assumptions in really supporting your clients along those lines, but going forward once the eco bonus is over? And then also in the Sostegniter law decree, people talked about giving up the so-called tax credit. And what's your take on it? Because the Bankers Association was very upset on it. Mr. Maggio will then go into details, but this is Mr. Catania speaking. This is one of the few successful initiatives we've had over the last few years in the industrial policies. Industria 4.0 and the eco bonus really were drivers for growth. And the government, of course, has to set dates in order to plan resources. And resources were put on the table. Now we talk about 2023 and then 2024, there'll be more. And it's my personal thought on the matter I'm expressing now, is that in order to achieve the very ambitious goals of the energy transition our country has to go through, and to support the building and construction industry that has suffered a lot, probably we will see the extension, maybe stepwise extension of these objectives in the coming years. Of course, we have to rely on that, but in a very balanced way. We cannot think that the support, forms of support will be in full as we go forward, but we know that the government will put something on the table to support people.
Innanzitutto noi sappiamo che
Let me reiterate what the chairman said. Within the business plan time horizon, the incentives somehow have already been included, discounted. We're already developing the eco bonus topic on hotels, on city council housing, and there's also opportunities for extension of the ordinary eco bonus until 2024 to those regions that were affected by earthquakes in the previous years. So that is already included and factored in. But what our chairman said is that it is the renewal of the real estate pool in Italy is huge. It starts from the 50s. We have buildings that have to be refurbished, buildings that date back to the 50s that have to be made more efficient from an energy viewpoint. So it goes from 2030 until 2050 even as a time range. And then in addition to that, there are European regulations that will lead us to taking into account having transactions on buildings that show no energy efficiency features. So there's a whole universe out there to be tackled. And then, of course, certifications will have to change. Over the last 2 years, so much has changed. We've got circular letters and from the IRS and etc. We hope things will stabilize. And then the giving up, the selling of, the transfer of the tax credits. As far as we are concerned, we don't have any activity to actually give up the tax credit. We directly resell to a number of entities, financial entities that have a convention with that. Corporate Unicredit, Cassa Risparmio di Bolzano, Popolare di Sondrio. So we dispose of it directly to the financial institution. So we're not involved in the tax credit sale or disposal process. But of course, there were some reasons for concern among people. You have to be very conservative. You have to be very careful, and a company like ours have to be aware because we work in a regulated business. So the change in rules and regulations is something we have to be aware of.
Sì. Buongiorno Barini.
Good morning, I'm Barini from Integrate. My question is, this plan doesn't show any idea of an expansion abroad. So considering the regulatory risks that are still there, even thinking of governments alternating or reshuffling, have you not thought of possible acquisitions or investments abroad in order to reduce the risk of regulatory reliance on one single country? Or could you just correct your investment plan moving forward? I mean, you mentioned French investors, and France is a place where circular economy investments and opportunities are there. Well, we devised our plan from a very pragmatic perspective. As you may have noticed, we have allocated resources, 12 million euros, namely, for acquisitions. There's a lot to do domestically because there's a huge demand here. And in so doing, we know that we are going to accrue our experiences and expertise. And so we could therefore also redeploy that abroad if there are any opportunities. So we stay open to international markets and investments, but with a very pragmatic approach. We needed to respond already to an extraordinary domestic market.
Francesco Sala, Banca Akros, thank you for the presentation. Two questions. The first is, we know that in the industry, there are some problems for components making in the supply chain. There are materials that are not available. Prices are going up, and we've been reading that both at national and international level. How do you manage this criticality? Do you see it being maintained going forward? How do you manage it? Second question, having looked at your goals, DNAs are going to be reduced versus CapEx. What's the technicality explaining this reduction in DNAs? What can you share with us to make us better understand how that happens? Thank you. I'll talk about the components and the technology supply chain. We are lucky enough to be experienced in the field, so to say. Innovatec is an energy efficiency company. So historically, we've had relationships with vendors and suppliers, with a number of suppliers, as I said, and we've had these relationships for many years. So we have the ability to plan ahead and acquire a major inventory, a major stock of material, because we interact directly with manufacturers, and we can book ahead. We have the financial power to book ahead monthly stocks and inventories, and we had a small time delay, but so far it's absolutely manageable. So it's not a criticality for us so far. When it comes to the investments, the CapEx, most of the CapEx will be in recovery and recycling. In the past, most of the CapEx instead was focusing on the disposal sites, waste disposal sites that normally have a very short investment cycle. They are managed in batches. I build, I use, and then I get rid of it. So it's a short cycle. Whilst investment on or capex for assets have a longer tax life, P&L life in excess of 10 years. So that enables us to have a meaningful capex plan, and at the same time, CATA DNAs. And it's part of the project in making our operations much sustainable. It's the environmental activity, and because it's recovering and recycling, so a longer time frame for our capex line.
Buongiorno, sono Alberto Francese.
I'm Alberto Francese from Intesa Sanpaolo. Good morning. I have two questions. The first is on circular economy. You showed to us that you are focusing on to a number of vertical pillars. Are there any synergies when you work on different pillars? And can you see synergies also when on the same pillars? What I mean is, if you have a plant in Turin instead of Bari, does that involve any level of synergies or not? The second question is on the ESG, sorry, on the ESG. You were ESG ready, as it's been said. Do you think you're going to be rated? You'd like to be rated by some agency for your ESG position? When it comes to circular economy and synergy, well, of course, you can look for synergies if for nothing else from a logistics standpoint. We have plants that can be used to multiply our presence. Cobalt has 60 plants, 60 sites that it can use for logistics that we could capitalize on. And then you have other logistics points. So we could just exchange them for logistics. And then you have synergies with the clients. Some clients that are already being served and supplied in for one activity could be the focus of a cross-selling activity. A few days ago, we have visited an insurance company which also has to dispose of cars that have been involved in car crashes. And so we have thought of a possible logistics synergy between the disposal of the cars, recycling of the materials, and batteries. So once we have acquired a client, we make available to them whatever step forward that could help in the management of their environmental concerns and circular economy. Now, we have just approved our annual sustainability plan. There will be a new plan approved this year in an even more accurate way. We would like to, of course, have that revised by a consultant this year. The consultant being from the university setting, and we have already agreed upon preparing for a certification for our environmental approaches. So yes, we are already looking at being certified, and ESG, as I said, is part of our DNA, of our corporate DNA. We've always been at the forefront of that, and we want to be present in every aspect, including certification, with a timeline that our CEO has just clarified.
Marco Greco, Value Track. Good morning. I have a couple of questions. One on the market setup. You said the domestic market has very interesting opportunities because of a general European trend and also because of its specific features in Italy. So I think it could be of interest for many other players. So what is the competitive scenario? Do you see any foreign players that could enter our market? And what makes you stand out from other players? now or going forward? And the second question on M&As, you said you want to invest on new vertical processes for recycling and recovering material. Could you elaborate on that? Could you give us some flavor on the most interesting vertical processes to focus on? Thank you. Thank you for your questions. And as to the market setup, of course, we are active in a number of markets, so there's not just one competitor we play against. We have competitors in individual markets. However, as far as the circular economy is concerned and environmental management, they are competitor on the one side, but they are client on the other side. So there's a fil rouge, there's a red thread connecting us, and we are in a beneficial position vis-a-vis our peers, our competitors, because we cover the entire value chain for environmental management and waste treatment. So we can play ahead of the curve when it comes to market trends. Mr. Catania now speaking. We are quite unique. We are one of a kind in our business model in the market. Indeed, there is competition, but think of the resources made available by the government. These incentives are appealing for everyone. But what we are seeing is that our competitors, especially the larger ones, they are mono business. And as you know, if you change culture, if you change business in a large company, in a large corporate, to turn it into an end-to-end business or venture, it's a slow process. Instead, we can be very lean. We can put together competencies and speed, and this is a plus. So very often when it comes to negotiations with individual clients or with the operators installing a photovoltaic panel, or they are studying a circular economy, this could be our competitors, but people who can actually run a study and then unfold it into a process, or engaging a client in collecting industrial waste and then, of course, treating it and reinserting material into the market. There are not many competitors. There are companies that are active in the environmental industry, and we've seen acquisitions of waste hubs or landfills. But even these new players are replicating the Innovatec model, and we are there already. We already have it, but we have to be able to, of course, develop over time and be fast and lean, because others will get where we are now. That's why we are relying on a fast and lean business model, understanding the law, the legal framework, acquisition of technologies, being competitive price-wise, introducing technologies, cross-selling. This is what makes a difference in the market right now. So it is a competitive market indeed, but we have a competitive edge so far, timeline or timing-wise.
As far as the pillars, the vertical pillars that we'd like to invest on the M&A front, there are three that are explicitly mentioned in the plan. E-waste with the acquisition of SEA, and the mattresses with the metamorphosis project, and then the ecological wall project taking care of drywalls. Now, there are others that are implicitly part of the plan. Of course, the strategic acquisition of Cobalt side by side with the activity that we're carrying out for advanced systems will lead us to be active also in the recovery of lithium batteries, which are a small market today, but will boom thanks to the evolution of electric mobility. The other sector that we are developing is the textile industry, thinking that 35% of the weight of mattresses is textiles that will have to be recovered too. That will attract our activity and focus on this particular material. We are going to focus on the pillars that are already part of the plan, and then evolving in small steps towards pillars that are neighboring those that we are already taking care of. Good morning. I'm Paolo Galli of Gruppo NRTT. I would like to hear from you if you can give us some objectives on the environmental reduction of the environmental impact of your activities.
Non ve li diamo adesso perché non li abbiamo qui con noi.
Unfortunately, we don't have the information here. We have, as we said initially, 69 executive plans, and each of them has very specific metrics to assess the progress. The Sustainability Committee that we have created within the company, which is also represented at the board and with the various divisions, has been tasked with continuously tracking the various KPIs that we have indicated for each of the 69 actions. So if you're interested, we can certainly send to you the Excel spreadsheet about the technologies that support us, or with the technologies that support us in this approach. But of course, we do have KPIs and top controlling to test our progress. Yes.
Cironi, Class CNBC. I'd like to ask you what you think of the proposition of the new European taxonomy of introducing natural gas and nuclear power that would be incentivized with green funds, and maybe these funds could be taken away from really green technologies. What do you think about that? What's your take? And then second question, how did you welcome the government measures for the so-called Sostegni-ter law bill to somehow keep prices steady, and then CO2 auctions, and then from until the 31st of December 2022, all plants incentivized with all systems, if they have an extra profit, they will have to pay it to the energy or grid manager through a compensation system. On the nuclear power, I think it's Mr. Catania speaking. I think what we heard from the Ministry of Energy, any form of alternative nuclear power has to be looked into, but with the right time frame. And it's outside our scope now. We have a business plan, and we're basing that on fixed and firm existing opportunities in the market, tied in with market dynamics and funded by the government, and this is what we focus on. We will indeed be following with utmost attention the evolution of the very pragmatic approach the government will take up as we move forward when it comes to assessing clean nuclear or alternative nuclear power. As to what the government will do to support the so-called the energy bill, we are talking about an additional cost for enterprise around 40 billion euro, and supports will be just about, incentives will be just about a few million euros. We expect the government to have a more decisive approach and supportive approach to enterprises, not just for companies that use up a lot of energy, but also for small entrepreneurs. And the CEO is answering now. The energy bill, the support the government is providing for the energy bill is not something that really concerns us right now, but the cost of energy, the partial offsettings that the government is putting in place make us clearly see how important energy transition is. And a number of entrepreneurs asked the government to support them to foot the energy bill. This is something they already felt in the past, but now the picture is clear because it has a direct economic impact on them. And this is what we can highlight right now. As Mr. Catania speaking, as a company, we are okay. But as we sell energy efficiency services, we are happy because it starts forcing companies to think about energy transition.
Altre domande?
Unless there are other questions, I think it's time for a lunch. And the only thing that is separating us from such lunch will be the final remarks that Vani is going to give us. I would like to thank you all for being here with us, for attending, and I hope our commitment has become evident to you. From an environmental standpoint, when it comes to ESG parameters, during our interim reporting session, we will also give more details. We commit also to provide more information about what our goals are and how we plan to get there. This being said, I'd like to thank you for being with us and say goodbye. But if you want to stay, there's a light lunch at the end of this conversation. Thank you very much for being with us.